Look what you made me do!
Marcus stood over Gabrielle's crumpled body on the marble floor of their $2.3 million Buckhead, Atlanta home, his fist still clenched, blood splattered across his designer shirt. 3 of Gabrielle's front teeth lay scattered on the white Italian marble like discarded pearls, one near the custom leather sofa, one by the fireplace, and one that had slid under the grand piano she used to play before he told her it annoyed him. Blood poured from Gabrielle's mouth as she tried to breathe through the shock and pain. Her hands instinctively covered her face, feeling the empty spaces where her teeth had been just seconds ago. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth, and she could feel the jagged edges where her beautiful smile used to be. "Look what you made me do," Marcus repeated, his voice a mixture of rage and something that almost sounded like panic. "If you had just kept your mouth shut, if you had just been a good wife like you're supposed to be, none of this would have happened." Welcome to Stories by Tino. Thank you so much for your incredible support. Before we dive into this powerful story, please drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from: USA, Jamaica, UK, Canada, or anywhere else in the world. We love hearing from you. Now, let's begin. 12 hours earlier, everything had seemed perfect. At least that's what the outside world saw. Gabrielle Richardson, 32 years old, stood in front of the bathroom mirror of their luxury home, carefully applying makeup to cover the fading bruise on her left cheekbone, a gift from Marcus 3 days ago when she had questioned why he came home at 3 a.m., smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. She was a beautiful woman, smooth caramel skin, natural black hair that she wore in elegant braids, warm brown eyes that used to sparkle with life, but now often held a carefully hidden sadness. She had a law degree from Emory University and had been a promising corporate attorney before Marcus convinced her to quit her job 2 years ago. "A woman of your status doesn't need to work," he had said, with that charming smile that had first attracted her 6 years ago. "Let me take care of you. Focus on making our home perfect, on supporting my business, on being the wife I need you to be." And fool that she was, she had believed him. She had believed that being Mrs. Marcus Richardson, wife of the successful owner of Richardson Tech Solutions, a rapidly growing IT consulting firm, would be enough. That being the perfect trophy wife would fill the emptiness inside her. But perfection, she had learned, was never enough for Marcus. The bruises started about a year after she quit her job. Small things at first, a shove here, a grab there, always with an excuse. "You know how stressed I am building this business. You pushed my buttons. If you hadn't talked back..." Then the bruises got bigger. The excuses stayed the same. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight they were attending the annual Black Business Excellence Awards at the Atlanta Convention Center. Marcus was receiving an award for Entrepreneur of the Year, and as his wife, Gabrielle was expected to look stunning, smile perfectly, and play her part in maintaining his image as a successful, family-oriented businessman. She had bought a beautiful emerald green evening gown, Marcus's favorite color, and had her hair and makeup done professionally. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The makeup artist had done an excellent job covering the bruise. No one would know. No one ever knew. The award ceremony was everything Marcus wanted it to be. He networked with Atlanta's black business elite, posed for photographs, and delivered a gracious acceptance speech about hard work, faith, and the support of his beautiful wife. Gabrielle stood beside him on stage, smiling with her perfect teeth, looking like the epitome of black excellence and marital success. Inside, she felt hollow. Empty, like an actress playing a role she didn't audition for. After the ceremony, they mingled with other award recipients and their spouses. Gabrielle made small talk with the other wives, most of whom she barely knew despite attending these events for years. Marcus kept her isolated from forming real friendships, another thing she had only recently begun to recognize as abuse. "Your husband is so accomplished," one woman said to Gabrielle with genuine admiration. "You must be so proud." "I am," Gabrielle replied automatically, her smile never faltering. It was the answer she had been trained to give. Then, across the room, she saw someone who made her heart skip, not from fear, but from recognition. Simone Martinez, her best friend from law school, whom Gabrielle hadn't seen in almost 3 years. Marcus had gradually cut Simone out of Gabrielle's life, claiming she was a bad influence and jealous of their success. Before Gabrielle could decide whether to approach her, Simone saw her and immediately began walking over, her face lighting up with joy. "Gabrielle! Oh my God, girl, I've been trying to reach you for years." Simone embraced her tightly, and for the first time in months, Gabrielle felt genuinely human. "Where have you been? I've called, texted, emailed. I've been busy," Gabrielle said, acutely aware that Marcus was watching from across the room, his jaw tight. "Too busy for your best friend?" Simone's tone was teasing, but her eyes were concerned. She was a sharp woman, now a successful attorney at one of Atlanta's top firms, and she noticed things others missed. "Gabrielle, are you okay?" "You look different." "I'm fine, really, just—" "Gabrielle." Marcus's voice cut through their conversation like a knife. He appeared beside her, his hand gripping her elbow just a little too tightly. "We need to leave. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Marcus, it's so good to see you," Simone said, her voice professional but cool. She had never liked him, even back when Gabrielle first started dating him. "Congratulations on your award." "Thank you," Marcus replied curtly, already steering Gabrielle away. "We really must go." In the car ride home, the silence was suffocating. Gabrielle knew she had done something wrong. She just didn't know what yet. With Marcus, it could be anything. She had smiled at a waiter. She had laughed too loudly. She had breathed wrong. "So you were planning to embarrass me," Marcus finally said as they pulled into their gated community, his voice dangerously quiet. "What?" "Marcus, I don't— With that bitch Simone, you were planning to what? Tell her lies about me? Make me look bad in front of everyone?" "No, Marcus, she just came up to me. I haven't talked to her in years. You know that—" "Don't lie to me." His voice exploded as he parked in their circular driveway. "I saw how you looked at her, like you were sending some kind of signal. What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I told her nothing because there's nothing to tell." Gabrielle hated how her voice shook, hated how she automatically went into defensive mode, hated how she had to justify a simple conversation with an old friend. They entered the house, and Gabrielle immediately headed for the stairs, hoping to escape to the bedroom and let Marcus cool off. But his hand shot out and grabbed her arm, spinning her around. "Where do you think you're going? I'm talking to you." "Marcus, please. I'm tired. It's been a long night." "You're tired?" His laugh was bitter and cold. "You're tired? I'm the one who worked for years to build this business, to give you this life, to make you somebody. And you can't even be respectful enough to pay attention when I'm talking to you." "I am paying attention." That's when he hit her the first time, an open-handed slap across her face that snapped her head to the side and brought tears to her eyes instantly. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" Marcus grabbed her by the throat, not quite choking, but close enough to terrify. "You think because you went to law school, because your family has money, that you're somehow above being my wife?" Gabrielle's family. He always brought them up when he wanted to hurt her. The Johnsons were old money. Her grandfather had been one of the first black real estate developers in Atlanta in the 1950s, building an empire that had sustained 3 generations. Gabrielle's father, Richard Johnson, now ran Johnson Holdings, a diversified investment company worth over $200 million. But Gabrielle had hidden most of this from Marcus when they first met. She had been deliberately vague about her family's wealth, tired of men who only saw dollar signs when they looked at her. She wanted to be loved for herself, not her family's money. So she had downplayed it, and Marcus had assumed she was just comfortable, not wealthy. It was only after they married that he realized he had married into serious money, and instead of being happy, he became resentful, insecure, violent. "My family has nothing to do with this," Gabrielle gasped, his hand still on her throat. "Your family has everything to do with this." Marcus shoved her away, and she stumbled backward into the living room. "You think I don't know?" You think I don't hear the way your father talks to me? The way he looks down on me like I'm not good enough for his precious daughter? That's not true. Shut up. Marcus's fist connected with her face, a closed fist punch that sent her sprawling onto the marble floor. Pain exploded through her jaw and mouth. She tasted blood immediately. Dazed, Gabrielle tried to push herself up, but Marcus grabbed her by her braids and yanked her head back. "You want to leave me, don't you?" he hissed in her ear. "You want to run back to your rich daddy and tell him what a terrible husband I am. Well, let me tell you something. You're not going anywhere. You're mine, you understand? Mine." He released her hair, and she fell forward. That's when she felt it, the sickening sensation of something loose in her mouth. She spit, and a tooth, her left front tooth, landed on the white marble floor in a small pool of blood. Gabrielle stared at it in shock, unable to process what she was seeing. Marcus's second punch knocked out 2 more teeth, her right front tooth and the one beside it. The pain was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just physical. It was the complete destruction of the last shred of dignity she had been clinging to. She lay on the cold marble floor, blood pooling around her face, 3 teeth scattered like broken promises, and listened to her husband, the man who had vowed to love and protect her, blame her for his violence. "Look what you made me do!" Marcus screamed, his voice breaking. "Look what you made me do!" Then, just as quickly as the rage had come, it disappeared. Marcus's expression shifted to something like horror as he looked at what he had done. "Baby. Gabrielle. I'm sorry. Oh, God. I'm so sorry." He knelt beside her, trying to touch her face, but she flinched away. "I didn't mean to. You made me so angry. Baby, please, let me take you to the hospital. We'll say you fell. Through the blood and pain, through the shock and humiliation, something inside Gabrielle clicked. A clarity she had never experienced before settled over her like a cold, protective armor. She pushed Marcus's hands away and slowly stood up, her legs shaking. She walked to the bathroom, Marcus following behind her, still apologizing, still making excuses, still blaming her even as he claimed remorse. Gabrielle looked at herself in the mirror. Blood covered her face and her beautiful emerald dress. Her mouth was a horror show, 3 front teeth gone, her lips swollen and split, her jaw already bruising. She looked like a victim, like someone to be pitied. But as she stared at her reflection, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt something else, something cold and clear and absolutely certain. Marcus had finally gone too far. He had marked her in a way that couldn't be hidden with makeup or long sleeves or clever angles in photographs. He had destroyed her smile, and in doing so, he had destroyed the last chain that kept her silent. "Gabrielle, baby, please say something," Marcus begged from the doorway. "I'll get you the best dentist. We'll fix this. Nobody has to know. We'll tell people you had an accident." She turned to face him, and something in her eyes made him step back. "Get out," she said quietly, her voice distorted by her missing teeth, but absolutely clear in its intent. "What?" "Get out of this bathroom. Gabrielle, we need to talk about now!" Her scream was primal, filled with years of suppressed rage, and Marcus actually stumbled backward in shock. He left, closing the door behind him. She heard him pacing in the bedroom, heard him on the phone with someone, probably calling his mother or his best friend, the people who always helped him justify his violence. Gabrielle locked the bathroom door and sank to the floor. She cried, not the silent tears she had trained herself to cry so Marcus wouldn't accuse her of being dramatic, but huge body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded inside her. She cried for the woman she used to be, the confident law student, the rising attorney, the daughter her parents had been so proud of. She cried for the 6 years she had wasted on a man who saw her as property, not a partner. She cried for all the times she had made excuses for him, had blamed herself, had stayed silent to keep the peace. And then, when the tears finally stopped, she made a decision. Marcus thought he had broken her. He thought knocking out her teeth was the ultimate act of control, the final message that he owned her and she could do nothing about it. He was wrong. Gabrielle pulled out her phone, the one Marcus didn't know about, the secret phone she had bought 2 months ago when she first started realizing she might need to leave. She opened her email and sent one message to 3 people: her father, Richard Johnson; her brother, David Johnson, who worked as chief investment officer at Johnson Holdings; and her old friend Simone Martinez, attorney at law. The message was simple: I'm ready. Tomorrow morning. Begin protocol. She hit send, then carefully collected her 3 teeth from the living room floor and put them in a plastic bag. Evidence. Then she took out the phone she had hidden in the back of her makeup drawer, the phone that had been recording everything in the living room for the past 3 months, and downloaded the video file to a secure cloud account. More evidence. Finally, she took dozens of photographs of her face, her missing teeth, the blood, the bruises. She documented everything with the cold precision of the attorney she used to be. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Marcus thought tonight was the end of her resistance. He thought he had finally beaten her into complete submission. He had no idea that tonight was actually the beginning of his complete destruction. Because what Marcus didn't know, what Gabrielle had been hiding for 3 years, was that she wasn't just the daughter of a wealthy family. She was secretly the primary investor in Richardson Tech Solutions, holding 60% ownership through a shell company her father had helped her create when Marcus first started his business. She owned his company. She owned his assets. She owned his reputation. And tomorrow morning, she was going to take it all away. As she sat on the bathroom floor, her mouth throbbing with pain, her beautiful dress ruined, her teeth gone, Gabrielle smiled, despite the pain, despite everything, because she knew something Marcus didn't. He had beaten her for the last time, and he was about to lose everything. What would you do if someone you loved beat you until you lost your teeth? Drop a like if you believe Gabrielle deserves justice, and comment where you're watching from. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is about to take a turn no one will see coming. How will Gabrielle destroy Marcus in just 24 hours? Gabrielle didn't sleep. How could she, with her mouth throbbing in agony, blood soaking through the towels she pressed against her swollen face, and Marcus snoring peacefully in their bedroom like he hadn't just destroyed his wife's smile hours ago? At 5:47 a.m., as the Atlanta sun began its slow rise over Buckhead, Gabrielle sat in the guest bathroom, the one with a lock Marcus couldn't easily break, and made a series of phone calls that would change everything. The first call was to her father. "Gabrielle?" Richard Johnson's voice was alert despite the early hour. He had been waiting. "Are you safe?" "He knocked out 3 of my teeth, Daddy." Her voice was thick, distorted by the missing teeth and swollen lips. She hadn't called him Daddy since she was a little girl, but right now she needed her father. "I have photos, I have video, and I'm ready to do what we discussed." There was a long silence on the other end. When her father spoke again, his voice was cold and controlled, the voice he used in boardrooms when he was about to destroy someone's career. "I'm activating the legal team now. Your brother is already working on the financial side. Can you get out of the house safely?" "Marcus is still asleep. He thinks I'm broken. He thinks I'll stay quiet like I always do." "Gabrielle, listen to me carefully." Her father's voice softened slightly. "I know you want revenge. I know you're angry, but your safety comes first. If you feel threatened..." "I'm not running anymore, Daddy. Today he loses everything." "Is Simone ready?" "She's been ready for 2 months, baby girl, ever since you first reached out to her. The paperwork is prepared, the evidence files are organized, and she's got the DA's office on standby. But we need you out of that house before we start the nuclear option." Gabrielle looked at her reflection in the mirror, the swollen face, the missing teeth, the woman who looked nothing like the polished trophy wife who had attended the award ceremony just 12 hours ago. "I'll be out in an hour. Start the countdown." At 6:30 a.m., Gabrielle heard Marcus moving around in the bedroom. She quickly splashed cold water on her face, wincing at the pain, and stepped out of the bathroom. Marcus stood in the hallway wearing his workout clothes, his face showing what looked like genuine remorse. For a moment, just a brief, stupid moment, Gabrielle almost felt sorry for him. He looked tired, haggard, older than his 37 years. "Baby," he said softly, approaching her with his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "How are you feeling?" "I've been thinking all night, and I'm going to my parents' house," Gabrielle interrupted, her voice flat. Marcus's expression shifted immediately, not to anger, but to panic. "What? No, baby, we need to talk about this. We need to—" "There's nothing to talk about. I'm going to see a dentist. I'm going to get medical attention, and I'm going to stay with my parents while I figure things out. Gabrielle, please." Marcus grabbed her arm, not violently but desperately. "Don't tell your family what happened. You know how your father is. He'll blow this out of proportion. He'll try to turn you against me." She pulled her arm away. "Marcus, you knocked out my teeth, my front teeth. How exactly would my father blow that out of proportion?" "It was an accident. You know I didn't mean—" "Save it." Gabrielle walked past him toward the bedroom, pulling out a suitcase from the closet. "I'll be back for my things later. Right now, I just need to leave." Marcus watched her pack with growing agitation. "How long are you staying with them?" "I don't know." "Gabrielle, come on. A few days, right? Just until you calm down and we can talk about this rationally?" She almost laughed. Rationally, as if there was anything rational about what he had done to her. "I'll call you," she lied, zipping up her suitcase. "Wait." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Let me at least call Dr. Stevens. He's a cosmetic dentist, one of the best in Atlanta. He can see you this morning, get you temporary teeth, and we can—" "I already have a dentist appointment." Another lie. Well, half a lie. She did have a dentist appointment, but not with some friendly doctor who would cover up the evidence. She was going to the Grady Memorial Hospital emergency room, where every injury would be thoroughly documented, photographed, and recorded in official medical records that could be subpoenaed. Marcus followed her to the front door, his agitation growing. "Gabrielle, please. I love you. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We always fix things." She turned to face him one last time. He looked pathetic, standing there in his designer workout clothes in their multi-million-dollar home, begging his wife not to leave after he'd beaten her teeth out. "We never fixed anything, Marcus. I just learned to pretend the breaking never happened." She walked out the door. The moment Gabrielle's Lexus pulled out of the driveway, she made another call. "It's done," she told Simone. "I'm out. Start phase 1. "Oh, honey, phase 1 started 10 minutes ago," Simone replied, and Gabrielle could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "Check your email." At a red light, Gabrielle opened her email on her phone. The subject line made her smile despite the pain in her mouth. Ownership transfer of Richardson Tech Solutions. Emergency board meeting called. The email was from the law firm of Martinez, Chen and Associates, Simone's firm, sent to Marcus Richardson at 6:15 a.m. It formally notified him that the majority shareholder of Richardson Tech Solutions, 60% ownership, was calling an emergency board meeting for 9 o'clock a.m. that morning to discuss significant concerns regarding company management and fiduciary responsibility. The majority shareholder was listed as J-Tech Holdings, LLC, the shell company Gabrielle's father had helped her create 3 years ago when Marcus first started his business. Marcus had been so desperate for startup capital back then, so eager to get his company off the ground, that he had barely read the investment documents. He had signed everything Gabrielle put in front of him, trusting his devoted wife completely. He had no idea that his wife, through her family's resources, had provided 80% of his startup capital. He thought it was all his money, his success, his company. He was about to learn the truth. At 7:45 a.m., Gabrielle sat in the emergency room at Grady Memorial Hospital, finally allowing medical professionals to examine her injuries. The ER doctor, a middle-aged black woman named Dr. Patricia Washington, took one look at Gabrielle's face and knew immediately what she was seeing. "How did this happen?" Dr. Washington asked gently, already documenting the injuries with photographs. "My husband punched me, twice, last night around 11:30 p.m. No lies, no covering up, just the truth, spoken clearly despite her missing teeth. Have you filed a police report? Not yet, but I will. Dr. Washington nodded approvingly. Good. I'm going to document everything here. The missing teeth, the lacerations, the facial bruising, the jaw trauma. These records can be used in court if you choose to press charges. I'm definitely pressing charges, Gabrielle said. An hour later, with temporary dental work to cover the missing teeth, official medical documentation of her injuries, and a referral to a maxillofacial surgeon, Gabrielle walked out of the hospital with everything she needed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother David. He just got the email. He's calling everyone, freaking out. It's beautiful. Phase 2 was about to begin. At 8:47 a.m., Marcus Richardson sat in his home office, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice rising with each passing second. What do you mean J-Tech Holdings owns 60% of my company? That's impossible. I own my company. His corporate attorney, a man named Gerald Hopkins, who Marcus paid $500 an hour, delivered the bad news. Marcus, I've reviewed the documents. J-Tech Holdings provided the majority of your startup capital 3 years ago. According to the shareholder agreement you signed, they have controlling interest, and they're calling an emergency board meeting this morning to remove you as CEO. This is insane! Who the hell is J-Tech Holdings? That's the interesting part, Marcus. J-Tech Holdings is owned by Johnson Family Investments, as in Richard Johnson, your father-in-law. The world tilted sideways. What? Your wife's family owns your company, Marcus. Or more specifically, your wife owns your company through her family's investment vehicle. And according to the notice we received, they're removing you from all operational control effective immediately. Marcus couldn't breathe. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. Gabrielle was his wife, his property, his possession. She didn't own anything. She didn't have power. She was supposed to be at her parents' house crying and eventually coming back to him like she always did. His phone buzzed with a new email. The subject line made his blood run cold. Notice of restraining order hearing, Superior Court of Fulton County. He opened it with shaking hands. Gabrielle had filed for a temporary restraining order, scheduled for an emergency hearing at 11:00 a.m. that morning. The petition included photographs of her bloody face, her missing teeth, and detailed documentation of years of abuse. But worse, so much worse, was the attached affidavit from Dr. Patricia Washington of Grady Memorial Hospital, officially documenting that Gabrielle's injuries were consistent with assault and that Gabrielle had stated she was the victim of domestic violence perpetrated by her husband, Marcus Richardson. His phone rang again. This time it was his business partner, Jerome. Marcus, what the hell is going on? I just got an email saying there's an emergency board meeting and you're being removed as CEO, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution just called me asking for comment about domestic violence allegations against you. The room was spinning. This couldn't be happening. It was 9:00 a.m., less than 10 hours since he had hit Gabrielle, and his entire life was crumbling. Another email, this time from his biggest client, Hartman Financial Services. We are suspending our contract with Richardson Tech Solutions, pending investigation into the character and conduct of company leadership. Another email. From the Black Business Excellence Organization, we are formally rescinding the Entrepreneur of the Year award presented to Marcus Richardson due to credible allegations of domestic violence. Another email. From the bank. Notice of asset freeze, pending legal review. His phone was exploding with notifications. Texts, calls, emails, all of them bad news, all of them destroying him piece by piece. And through it all, one thought kept echoing in his mind. How did this happen so fast? At 9:15 a.m., Gabrielle sat in the law offices of Martinez, Chen & Associates, surrounded by her family and the best legal team money could buy. Her father squeezed her hand. You sure you want to go through with all of this? Once we start, there's no going back. Gabrielle thought about the years of abuse, the bruises, the isolation, the woman she used to be before Marcus systematically destroyed her confidence and autonomy, the 3 teeth that would never grow back. "I'm not going back anyway, Daddy, so we might as well go forward." Simone smiled. "Then let's finish this." Marcus thought beating Gabrielle would keep her silent. Instead, he just gave her the motivation to destroy him completely. What happens next will shock you. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Coming chapter is going to show you what real power looks like when an abused woman finally fights back. At 9 a.m. sharp, Marcus Richardson walked into the conference room of Richardson Tech Solutions, his company, his empire, his pride, and found himself facing the firing squad. 7 people sat around the conference table. 3 were board members he recognized, people he had appointed himself, people he thought were loyal to him. The other 4 were strangers in expensive suits, each with briefcases and the cold, professional expressions of attorneys who specialized in corporate warfare. At the head of the table sat Richard Johnson, Gabrielle's father, Marcus's father-in-law, and apparently the man who actually owned his company. "Sit down, Marcus," Richard said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Marcus remained standing. "What the hell is this? This is my company. You can't just—" "Sit down." Richard's voice didn't rise, but the command was unmistakable. Marcus sat. One of the attorneys, a sharp-eyed black woman in her 40s, opened a leather portfolio. "Mr. Richardson, my name is Angela Morrison, and I represent J-Tech Holdings, LLC. We are the majority shareholder of Richardson Tech Solutions, holding 60% ownership. This emergency board meeting has been called to address serious concerns regarding company management." "This is insane," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. He was beginning to understand just how thoroughly he had been outmaneuvered. "I built this company from nothing, from $2.4 million in startup capital provided by J-Tech Holdings," Angela interrupted smoothly. "Capital you received 3 years ago when your wife, acting on behalf of her family's investment firm, believed you were a trustworthy entrepreneur worthy of support." She slid a document across the table. "This is the shareholder agreement you signed in 2021. I'd like to draw your attention to Section 7, Paragraph 3, which clearly states that the majority shareholder has the right to remove any officer or director with or without cause." Marcus stared at the document. His signature was right there, bold and confident from 3 years ago when he thought he was signing a simple investment agreement. "The purpose of this meeting," Angela continued, "is to formally notify you that effective immediately, you are removed from your position as CEO of Richardson Tech Solutions. You are also removed from the board of directors. You will have no operational authority, no access to company accounts, and no decision-making power regarding company business." "You can't do this!" Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "I have clients, contracts, employees who depend on me." "Actually, we can," Richard spoke now, his voice still deadly calm. "And we are. You see, Marcus, when you beat my daughter last night, when you knocked out her teeth and left her bleeding on your marble floor, you didn't just cross a line as a husband. You crossed a line as a business owner whose company has a morality clause in its contracts." Another attorney slid more documents across the table. 3 of your major clients have already suspended their contracts pending investigation into your character. Hartman Financial, Riverside Medical Group, and the City of Atlanta Procurement Department. That's approximately $4.7 million in annual revenue. Gone. Marcus felt sick. "This is because of Gabrielle? Because of a private domestic situation? You're destroying my business over the fact that you're a violent criminal?" Richard's calm finally cracked, and real anger blazed in his eyes. "My daughter is in pain right now because of you. She lost 3 teeth, Marcus. Do you understand what you've done?" "It was an accident. Things got heated. She pushed my buttons." "Stop." Richard stood up, and despite being in his 60s, he radiated the kind of power that came from building empires and crushing competitors. "I've listened to you make excuses for years. Every time Gabrielle came to family dinner with a new bruise, you had an excuse. Every time she flinched when you raised your voice, you had an explanation. My wife begged me to intervene, but Gabrielle asked us to stay out of it. She said she loved you. She said you were working on it. Richard walked around the table until he stood directly in front of Marcus. But last night, you went too far. And this morning, my daughter finally gave me permission to do what I should have done 3 years ago. Take away every single thing you've stolen from her. Stolen? I didn't steal anything from Gabrielle. You stole 6 years of her life, Richard said quietly. You stole her confidence, her career, her smile. You stole the woman she was supposed to become. And you did it all while living in a house she paid for, driving cars she financed, and running a company she owns. Marcus's brain couldn't process what he was hearing. The house? The cars? Angela, the attorney, smiled coldly. The Buckhead Mansion is owned by Johnson Family Properties, LLC. You've been living there rent-free as a courtesy to Gabrielle. The Mercedes S-Class you drive is registered to JTech Holdings. The vacation home in Hilton Head? Also Johnson property. In fact, Marcus, once we finish auditing your finances, I suspect we'll find that approximately 75% of your lifestyle has been subsidized by the Johnson family, with your wife protecting your ego by never telling you. Marcus felt like he was falling into an abyss. She never told me. Because she loved you, Richard said, and for a moment there was genuine sadness in his voice. Because she thought if she made herself small enough, if she hid her wealth and power, you would feel like the man you pretended to be. But you weren't man enough to love her without hitting her. So now, you lose everything. At 10 o'clock a.m., Marcus was escorted out of his own building by security, his own security guards, who had been quietly informed that morning that they now worked for new management. His company key card didn't work. His parking space had been reassigned, his nameplate had been removed from the door. In 1 hour, he had gone from award-winning entrepreneur to unemployed abuser. He sat in his Mercedes, no, not his Mercedes, apparently the Johnson family's Mercedes, and tried to call Gabrielle. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried texting. The messages showed as delivered but not read. His phone buzzed with a notification from his bank. Account access restricted. Contact customer service. He called his bank, but after 10 minutes on hold, a nervous representative explained that there was a legal hold on his accounts, pending investigation into commingled marital assets and potential financial abuse. Financial abuse. Him? He had never controlled Gabrielle's money because he never knew she had money. Another notification, this time from social media. Someone had posted the story. Local entrepreneur accused of domestic violence. Wife files restraining order. The post included a photo, not of Marcus, but of Gabrielle's missing teeth, bloody and lying on white marble. The image was horrifying, damning, impossible to explain away. Within minutes, his mentions exploded. People he knew, business associates, church members, neighbors, were commenting, expressing shock and disgust. Some defended him, saying there must be more to the story, but they were quickly drowned out by voices calling him a monster, an abuser, a criminal. His phone rang. His mother. "Marcus, baby, what is happening? People are calling me, saying terrible things. Mama, it's not what it looks like. Gabrielle is lying. She's trying to... Did you hit her, Marcus? Tell me the truth. Did you put your hands on that girl?" Silence. "Marcus, it wasn't like people are making it sound. She pushed me and things got out of hand." Oh my God, Marcus, what have you done?" His mother was crying now. "I raised you better than this. Your father would be ashamed. Mama, please, I need you to..." She hung up. At 11 o'clock a.m., Marcus stood in Fulton County Superior Court for the restraining order hearing. He had managed to find a lawyer, a young guy fresh out of law school who was willing to take the case on short notice. But one look at the opposition told Marcus he was outgunned. Gabrielle sat at the petitioner's table, surrounded by 4 attorneys from Martinez, Chen, and Associates. She wore a conservative navy blue dress, minimal makeup, and when she turned to look at him, The temporary dental work couldn't hide the damage he had done. The judge, an older black woman named Judge Sarah Henderson, reviewed the petition with a grim expression. "Mr. Richardson, I've looked at the evidence submitted by the petitioner. Photographs of her injuries, medical records from Grady Hospital documenting 3 missing teeth and facial trauma, and a sworn affidavit stating you struck her multiple times. How do you respond to these allegations?" Marcus's young lawyer stood nervously. "Your Honor, my client maintains that the incident was—" "I'm asking Mr. Richardson, counselor. Sir, did you strike your wife last night?" All eyes turned to Marcus. The courtroom was packed. Reporters in the back rows, Gabrielle's family in the front, even some of his former employees who had somehow heard about the hearing. Marcus opened his mouth to deny it, to make excuses, to explain that Gabrielle had provoked him. But then he looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman he had claimed to love while systematically destroying her, at the space where her beautiful smile used to be. "Yes," he heard himself say, "I hit her." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Henderson banged her gavel. "Mr. Richardson, I'm granting a temporary restraining order. You are to stay at least 500 feet away from Ms. Johnson." She deliberately used Gabrielle's maiden name. "At all times. You are prohibited from contacting her directly or indirectly. You are to vacate the marital home immediately. Do you understand?" "That's my house!" The words burst out before Marcus could stop them. Judge Henderson raised an eyebrow. "Actually, according to the property records submitted this morning, the house is owned by Johnson Family Properties, LLC. So no, Mr. Richardson, it's not your house. You have until 5 p.m. today to collect your personal belongings under police supervision." She looked at Gabrielle with something like respect. "Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry for what you've endured. I'm also referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges. Aggravated assault causing permanent disfigurement is a serious felony in Georgia." Felony. Criminal charges. Prison. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. As the hearing concluded and Marcus stumbled out of the courtroom, he realized the full scope of what Gabrielle had done. In less than 12 hours, she had taken his company, frozen his accounts, taken his home, destroyed his reputation, and set him up for criminal prosecution, all because he had underestimated her, all because he had seen her as weak, controllable, powerless. He had beaten her until she lost her teeth, and she had made him lose everything. Marcus is learning what real power looks like, and it's terrifying. But Gabrielle isn't done yet. What else does she have planned? Next chapter will blow your mind. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. By noon, Marcus Richardson was sitting in a Motel 6 off I-85, surrounded by the few personal belongings police had allowed him to take from his house under supervised removal. One suitcase of clothes, his laptop, a box of personal documents. Everything else, the designer furniture, the art collection, the $80,000 home theater system, belonged to the house, which belonged to Johnson Family Properties, which meant it belonged to Gabrielle. He stared at his laptop screen, scrolling through the financial devastation with growing horror. His business bank account? Frozen. His personal checking account? Frozen. His savings? Frozen. His credit cards? All declined, with notices stating, "Account under review, legal hold." The only money he had was the $247 in cash in his wallet and whatever his mother might lend him, assuming she ever spoke to him again. His phone buzzed with yet another notification. This time from LinkedIn. Your employment status at Richardson Tech Solutions has been changed to former employee. Even LinkedIn was turning against him. Meanwhile, across town at the Four Seasons Hotel Atlanta, Gabrielle sat in a luxury suite paid for by her father, surrounded by her family and legal team. Despite the pain medication and temporary dental work, she felt more clear-headed than she had in years. "The restraining order is just the beginning," Simone explained, reviewing documents on her tablet. "The DA's office is fast-tracking the criminal case. With your medical records, the photographic evidence, and Marcus's own admission in court that he hit you, They're confident they can get an aggravated assault conviction. How much time could he get? Gabrielle's mother, Patricia Johnson, asked. She was an elegant woman in her early 60s, and she had been crying on and off all morning since seeing her daughter's injuries. In Georgia, aggravated assault causing permanent disfigurement, which losing 3 teeth qualifies as, carries a penalty of 1 to 20 years. Given Marcus's lack of prior criminal record, he'd probably get 5 to 7 years with good behavior. Good, Patricia said fiercely. He deserves every single day. Gabrielle's brother David, a shareholder in several tech companies through his position at Johnson Holdings, had more immediate concerns. What about the business? Richardson Tech Solutions has some legitimate value. Do we salvage it or shut it down? Salvage it, Gabrielle said immediately. The company has good employees who had nothing to do with Marcus's abuse. They don't deserve to lose their jobs because their CEO is a monster. Agreed, Richard said. David, I want you to take over as interim CEO. Clean house of anyone who enabled Marcus's behavior, bring in proper management, and see if we can rebuild the reputation. What about Marcus's shares? David asked. He still technically owns 40%. Simone smiled. Actually, there's a morality clause in the shareholder agreement. If any shareholder is convicted of a felony involving moral turpitude, which assault definitely qualifies as, their shares can be purchased back by the company at a nominal value, $1 per share. Gabrielle did the math in her head. His 40% stake is worth approximately $3.2 million at current valuation. You're saying we can buy it back for $40? Assuming he's convicted, yes. And given that he admitted to hitting you in open court, conviction is virtually guaranteed. For the first time since losing her teeth, Gabrielle laughed. It hurt, but it felt good. He's going to lose $3.2 million because he couldn't control his fists. Oh, it gets better, David said, pulling up a spreadsheet on his laptop. I've been reviewing Marcus's finances all morning. The guy is leveraged to his eyeballs. He has a $200,000 loan against his supposed equity in the company, equity that's about to be worth $40. He has 3 car leases in his name that he can't pay now that his accounts are frozen. He owes $85,000 on credit cards. And get this, he's been taking money from the business account for personal use, which is a separate legal violation. So not only is he going to prison, Simone summarized, he's also going bankrupt and possibly facing additional fraud charges. Patricia squeezed her daughter's hand. Baby, I know this is all justified, but how are you feeling? Really? Gabrielle thought about the question. 24 hours ago, she had been terrified of Marcus, had believed she deserved his anger, had convinced herself that staying was somehow noble or right. Now she felt powerful, clear, free. I feel like I should have done this 6 years ago, she said quietly, but better late than never. At 2:00 p.m., Marcus received a visit at the motel. His best friend, Jerome, who had been his business partner before the Johnson family takeover, sat across from him looking uncomfortable. Man, I don't even know what to say, Jerome began. The photos online. Marcus, what were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. I was angry and Marcus stopped himself. Even now, part of him wanted to make excuses. I messed up, Jay. I really messed up. That's an understatement. The company is already distancing itself from you. David Johnson, Gabrielle's brother, showed up this morning and announced he's the new CEO. He fired 3 managers who he said were complicit in enabling toxic leadership. I think he meant people who saw Gabrielle's bruises and didn't say anything. Marcus felt a chill. Were you one of them? Jerome looked away. I saw a bruise on her arm once, at the company holiday party 2 years ago. I asked if everything was okay, and she said she'd bumped into a door. I knew it was bullshit, but I didn't push. I didn't want to get involved in your marriage. So what are you saying? I'm saying I should have done something. And I'm saying I can't help you now, Marcus. My wife already told me if I stand by you publicly, she's leaving me. And honestly, after seeing those photos of Gabrielle's teeth, I don't blame her. Jerome stood up. I hope you get help, man. Real help. Because whatever you were doing to Gabrielle, that's not love. That's not even anger. That's something broken inside you that needs fixing. He walked out, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of his choices. At 4:00 p.m., the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published a full investigative piece titled, "Behind the Perfect Image: How Marcus Richardson Built an Empire on His Wife's Money While Abusing Her Behind Closed Doors." The article was devastating. It included interviews with former employees who anonymously described seeing Gabrielle with suspicious injuries, financial records showing the Johnson family's investment in Richardson Tech Solutions, quotes from domestic violence experts explaining financial abuse and coercive control, the now viral photo of Gabrielle's missing teeth, a timeline of Marcus's award and accolades, contrasted with estimated dates of abuse based on medical records Gabrielle had secretly kept. The article ended with a quote from Gabrielle herself, "I want other women to know that leaving is possible. Even when you're scared, even when you think he'll destroy you if you go. The truth is, abusers are the ones who are weak. They're the ones who can't survive exposure. My ex-husband thought beating me would keep me silent. Instead, it gave me the courage to speak. And in speaking, I discovered I had more power than he ever did." Within hours, the article had been shared 50,000 times. Gabrielle Johnson was trending on Twitter. Domestic violence organizations were using her story as an example of successful escape and justice. Marcus Richardson had become the face of everything wrong with domestic violence in successful Black communities, the respectable abuser, the charming public figure who terrorized his wife in private, the man who got away with it until he didn't. At 7:00 p.m., Marcus's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Desperate for any human contact, he answered. "Mr. Richardson, this is Detective Lisa Morrison with the Atlanta Police Department, Domestic Violence Unit. I need you to come to the station tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. for formal questioning regarding assault charges." Marcus's hands started shaking. "Do I need a lawyer?" "That's your right, sir. But I'll be honest with you. We have medical evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, and your own admission in court. The DA is planning to charge you with aggravated assault, criminal battery, and terroristic threats based on statements you made to your wife over the past 3 years that she recorded." "Recorded? What recordings?" "Your wife had been documenting abuse for several months, Mr. Richardson. She has audio recordings of you threatening to kill her if she left you, video of you destroying property during violent episodes, text messages where you apologized for losing control. The case against you is airtight." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "She recorded me?" "Yes, sir. And it was completely legal since Georgia is a one-party consent state. She didn't need your permission to record conversations she was part of." After the detective hung up, Marcus sat in his cheap motel room and realized the full scope of what Gabrielle had done. She hadn't just decided yesterday to leave him. She had been planning this for months, documenting everything, building an airtight case, waiting for the right moment. And he had given her that moment when he knocked out her teeth. He had thought he was punishing her for disrespecting him. Instead, he had given her the final piece of evidence she needed to destroy him completely. At 9:00 p.m., Gabrielle had dinner with her parents at the hotel restaurant. Despite the pain and the temporary dental work that made eating difficult, she managed some soup and soft bread. "The surgeon says the implants will take about 6 months," she told them. 3 procedures total, but eventually I'll have a smile again." "A better smile," her mother said firmly, "because it will belong to a free woman." Richard raised his wine glass. "To Gabrielle, the strongest person I know." Gabrielle clinked her water glass against his. "To being strong enough to leave, and smart enough to plan." As they ate, Simone called with an update. "Marcus has been officially charged. 3 counts of aggravated assault. 2 counts of terroristic threats. Bail is set at $50,000. "Can he make bail?" Gabrielle asked. "Not without access to his accounts, which are all frozen. His mother might post it, but I made some calls. She's so ashamed of him right now that she's refusing to help. He's going to sit in jail until his arraignment next week." Gabrielle felt a twinge of something, not quite sympathy, but recognition of how far Marcus had fallen. 24 hours ago, he had been a successful businessman receiving awards. Now he was sitting in jail, broke, unemployed, and facing years in prison. "Good," she said, and meant it. Because Marcus Richardson had spent 6 years making her feel small, powerless, and broken. He had beaten her, controlled her, and tried to destroy the woman she was meant to be. And in response, she had taken everything from him in a single day. Not with violence, not with screaming, but with planning, evidence, and the resources he never knew she had. He had beaten her until she lost her teeth. She had made him lose his freedom, his company, his reputation, his wealth, and his future. And she was just getting started. 3 weeks later, Marcus Richardson sat in the Fulton County Jail wearing an orange jumpsuit, waiting for his attorney to arrive. He had been denied bail after the prosecution argued he was a flight risk and a danger to Gabrielle. His mother had initially refused to help, though she eventually softened enough to hire him a public defender upgrade, a struggling criminal attorney named Kevin Walsh, who charged $10,000 for the case, money his mother could barely afford. Marcus had lost 20 pounds. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. The confident, award-winning entrepreneur who had stood on stage 3 weeks ago was gone, replaced by a broken man who spent 23 hours a day in a cell, watching his life disintegrate through news articles other inmates showed him on contraband phones. The worst part wasn't the jail itself. It was watching Gabrielle thrive without him. She had given an interview to Good Morning America that had gone viral. Sitting across from Robin Roberts, her temporary dental work visible, but her confidence radiating, Gabrielle had told her story with clarity and strength. "For 6 years I believed the lies he told me," Gabrielle had said, "that I was too sensitive, that I provoked him, that if I just tried harder to be a better wife, he would stop hurting me. But the truth is, nothing I did would have stopped him. Because abuse isn't about the victim's behavior. It's about the abuser's need for control." Robin Roberts had asked the question everyone wanted to know. "You come from a wealthy family. You're educated. Why didn't you leave sooner?" "Because money and education don't make you immune to abuse," Gabrielle replied. "Abusers are skilled at psychological manipulation. They isolate you from your support system. They make you doubt your own reality. And they convince you that leaving will be worse than staying. My ex-husband told me for years that no one would believe me, that I was nothing without him, that my family would blame me for ruining the marriage. I believed those lies until the night he knocked out my teeth. That was the moment I realized, he's going to kill me if I don't leave. So I left. And I discovered I had more power than he ever did." The interview had been shared millions of times. Gabrielle had become a symbol of survivor strength, of wealthy women speaking out about abuse, of the importance of having your own resources and identity within a marriage. Meanwhile, Marcus had become the villain in a national conversation about domestic violence in successful Black communities. Kevin Walsh, Marcus's attorney, arrived at the jail with bad news written all over his face. "The DA is offering a plea deal," Kevin said, sliding papers across the table. "Plead guilty to 2 counts of aggravated assault, 7 years in prison, eligible for parole after 5. If you take it to trial and lose, you're looking at 15 to 20 years. Marcus stared at the papers. 7 years of my life. For what? For hitting my wife? People get less time for killing someone." "You didn't just hit her, Marcus. You permanently disfigured her. You knocked out 3 teeth. That's serious bodily injury. And the prosecution has everything. Medical records, photos, videos, recordings of you threatening to kill her, your own admission in court. You have no defense." "What about her? What about the fact that she secretly owned my company? That she was lying to me for years about her family's money? Doesn't that count as provocation?" Kevin looked at him with barely disguised disgust. "No, Marcus. Your wife hiding assets to protect herself from your financial abuse is not legal provocation for you to beat her until her teeth fell out. In fact, her actions are textbook domestic violence survival strategy. She was preparing an escape route, which suggests she knew you were dangerous long before that night." Marcus slumped in his chair. "So what are you telling me? Take the plea?" I'm telling you that if we go to trial, the jury is going to see that photo of her bloody teeth on marble floor. They're going to hear recordings of you threatening her. They're going to see a successful, educated woman who had every resource to leave, but was so psychologically controlled by you that it took losing her teeth to give her the courage. You will be convicted, and the sentence will be harsh. Take the plea. Do your time. Get therapy. Try to become a better person. Back in Atlanta, Gabrielle sat in the newly remodeled offices of Richardson Tech Solutions, now renamed Johnson Tech Solutions. Her brother David had taken over as CEO, and the company was thriving under new management. 3 major clients who had suspended contracts had returned. Employee morale was up. Revenue was projected to increase 40% over the next year. And Gabrielle, despite having no official role in the company, was the majority shareholder whose investment was now worth considerably more than the $2.4 million her family had initially provided. But business success wasn't what occupied her mind today. Today was her first major public speaking engagement since the abuse became public, a keynote speech at the National Domestic Violence Conference in Chicago. Simone helped her prepare backstage. "You nervous?" "Terrified," Gabrielle admitted. Her permanent dental implants wouldn't be ready for another 3 months, so she still wore temporary teeth. But her smile, even with the temporary work, was brighter than it had been in years. "What if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm not inspiring enough?" "Gabrielle, you brought down your abuser in less than 24 hours. You turned your pain into power. You're going to be fine." When Gabrielle walked onto the stage, she was greeted by a standing ovation from 3,000 domestic violence survivors, advocates, and professionals. She stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, women and men who understood pain, survival, and resilience. "My name is Gabrielle Johnson," she began, "and 23 days ago, my husband beat me so badly that I lost 3 teeth. Today he's sitting in jail awaiting trial, and I'm standing here with my freedom, my power, and my future." The audience erupted in applause. "I didn't always have this strength," she continued. "For 6 years, I was trapped in a cycle of abuse and control. I made excuses for him. I blamed myself. I convinced myself that my education, my family's money, my intelligence somehow meant I should have been able to fix him. But you can't fix someone who doesn't believe they're broken, and you can't love someone into treating you with respect." She spoke for 30 minutes, detailing her journey, the isolation, the escalating violence, the moment she decided to document everything, the planning that went into her escape, and the 24 hours that changed everything. "I had advantages many survivors don't have," Gabrielle acknowledged. "I had family money, legal connections, and resources. But I want every survivor to know, whether you have resources or not, you have power. The power to document, the power to plan, the power to reach out to domestic violence organizations who will help you for free, the power to decide that your life is worth more than maintaining someone else's ego." When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Women approached her afterward, crying, thanking her, telling their own stories of survival. One woman, a young Latina in her 20s, grabbed Gabrielle's hands. "My husband tells me no one will believe me because he's a respected businessman, but you showed me that even respected businessmen can be held accountable. Thank you. You saved my life today." Gabrielle hugged her tightly. "You're going to save your own life. I just showed you it's possible." 2 weeks later, Marcus Richardson accepted the plea deal. 7 years in state prison for 2 counts of aggravated assault. The courtroom was packed for the sentencing hearing. Gabrielle sat in the front row, flanked by her family and Simone. This was the first time she had seen Marcus in person since the restraining order was issued. He looked broken, defeated, 20 pounds lighter, his designer suits replaced by an ill-fitting borrowed jacket, his confident swagger gone. Judge Henderson addressed him directly. "Mr. Richardson, do you have anything to say before I accept this plea and impose sentencing?" Marcus stood, his lawyer beside him. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at Gabrielle. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'm sorry for what I did to you, for the years of pain, for the control, for the violence, for taking the woman you were supposed to be and trying to make her smaller so I could feel bigger. You deserved better. You always deserved better." Gabrielle's expression didn't change. She had waited 6 years for an apology, but now that it came, it felt empty. Words couldn't give her back the time she'd lost, or the teeth she'd never get back. Judge Henderson spoke. "Mr. Richardson, I'm accepting your guilty plea and sentencing you to 7 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. I hope you use this time to reflect on the harm you've caused and to become a better person. But more importantly, I hope you understand that your actions didn't just hurt Ms. Johnson. You hurt every woman who looked at your successful image and believed that wealth and status could protect them from violence. You hurt every victim who stayed silent because they saw men like you get away with it. Your accountability matters." She banged her gavel. "Court is adjourned." As bailiffs led Marcus away in handcuffs, he looked back one last time at Gabrielle. She met his gaze with steady, clear eyes, not with hatred, but with the quiet confidence of someone who had reclaimed her power. That evening, Gabrielle had dinner with her family at their home in the upscale Druid Hills neighborhood, the home where she had grown up, where she had always been safe, where she should have run years ago. "How do you feel?" her mother asked. "Now that it's really over?" Gabrielle thought about the question. Marcus was going to prison. She was free. Her smile would eventually be restored. Her life was her own again. "I feel like I can breathe," she said. "For the first time in 6 years, I can breathe." Her father raised his glass. "To breathing, to freedom, to my daughter who taught me that strength isn't about never being hurt. It's about refusing to stay hurt." As they toasted, Gabrielle felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Not happiness exactly, because the trauma would take time to heal, but peace. The knowledge that she was safe, powerful, and free. Marcus had beaten her until she lost her teeth, but she had made him lose everything: his freedom, his reputation, his business, his future. And most importantly, she had regained everything she had lost: her confidence, her power, her voice, and her life. The abuser was in prison, the survivor was free, and that was justice. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, Gabrielle stood in front of the mirror in her new townhouse in Virginia Highland, one of Atlanta's most vibrant neighborhoods. The townhouse was hers, not her family's, not some property she shared with a man, but genuinely, completely hers. She had bought it with money from the dividends of her shares in Johnson Tech Solutions, which had doubled in value under David's leadership. But more importantly today, she was looking at something else in the mirror: her new smile. The final dental surgery had been completed 2 weeks ago. 3 permanent implants had replaced the teeth Marcus had knocked out. The surgeon, Dr. Michelle Okoye, had done exceptional work. The new teeth were perfect: strong, white, natural-looking. Gabrielle smiled at her reflection, testing it out. For 6 months, she had worn temporary teeth that looked acceptable but felt foreign. Now, finally, her smile was her own again. Different from before, yes, but in some ways, better. Because this smile represented survival, strength, the refusal to let violence define her forever. Her phone buzzed with a text from Simone. "You ready? Car's outside. Big day." Today was the official launch of the Gabrielle Johnson Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors, a nonprofit organization Gabrielle had spent the past 6 months building with the help of her family's resources and her own growing platform as a survivor advocate. The foundation's mission was simple but powerful: provide financial resources, legal support, and safe housing to domestic violence survivors who wanted to leave but lacked the means. Every woman deserved what Gabrielle had: family money, good lawyers, safe places to stay. The foundation would be that safety net for women who had nowhere else to turn. The launch event was held at the Atlanta History Center, a beautiful venue in Buckhead. Over 400 people attended: donors, domestic violence advocates, survivors, journalists, and community leaders. Gabrielle had debated whether to hold the event in Buckhead, the same neighborhood where Marcus had beaten her, but ultimately she decided that reclaiming the space was important. She refused to let that neighborhood, or anything else, remain tainted by his violence. As she took the stage for her keynote speech, she felt a moment of nervousness. But then she saw familiar faces in the audience: her parents, her brother, Simone, and dozens of women who had reached out to her over the past months to share their own stories of survival. 6 months ago, Gabrielle began, I stood in a different kind of room, a courtroom, and watched my abuser be sentenced to 7 years in prison. That was the day I got justice. But today is about something bigger than justice. Today is about hope. She gestured to the banner behind her, displaying the foundation's logo, a phoenix rising from flames. The Gabrielle Johnson Foundation exists because I had resources many survivors don't have. I had family money. I had connections. I had lawyers who could move quickly and decisively. But what about the single mother working 2 jobs who can't afford to miss a day of work to go to court? What about the immigrant woman who fears deportation if she reports her abuser? What about the teenager trapped in her parents' home with nowhere to go? They deserve the same chance at freedom that I got. The audience nodded, some wiping tears. This foundation will provide 3 things, Gabrielle continued. First, emergency financial assistance, money for security deposits on apartments, for temporary hotel stays, for filing legal paperwork. Second, legal support, free attorneys who specialize in domestic violence cases and restraining orders. Third, a network of safe houses across Georgia where survivors can stay while they plan their next steps. She paused, her new smile visible and radiant. My abuser thought he broke me when he knocked out my teeth, but all he did was give me the final push I needed to reclaim my power. And now, I'm using that power to help other women reclaim theirs. The applause was thunderous. After her speech, Gabrielle spent 2 hours meeting with donors, survivors, and advocates. One conversation in particular stayed with her. A young black woman in her mid-20s approached nervously. Ms. Johnson, my name is Tasha Williams. I saw your interview on Good Morning America, and it gave me the courage to leave my boyfriend 3 weeks ago. He'd been beating me for 2 years, but I thought I couldn't leave because we have a baby together, and I don't make enough money to support us alone. But after hearing your story, I realized staying was going to get me killed. So I left. I'm staying with my sister right now, but I need help getting a restraining order and finding permanent housing. Gabrielle immediately pulled out her phone. Simone, can you come here for a moment? Within 5 minutes, Tasha was connected with Simone's law firm for free legal representation and had an appointment to discuss emergency housing through the foundation's new Safe House network. As Tasha walked away with tears of gratitude in her eyes, Gabrielle felt a profound sense of purpose. This was why she had survived, not just to escape Marcus, but to create a path for other women to escape too. Meanwhile, 200 miles away in Georgia State Prison, Marcus Richardson sat in the prison library reading that same Good Morning America interview transcript that an inmate had printed out for him. Prison had been brutal. Marcus was no longer the confident businessman who thought he controlled everything. He was an inmate, stripped of power, forced to follow rules, surrounded by men who had even less respect for woman beaters than the general public did. He had been jumped twice in his first month, once by a gang member whose sister had been killed by her abusive husband, and once by his own cellmate after Marcus made the mistake of defending his actions. Both times, he ended up in the infirmary. Both times, the guards made it clear they weren't particularly interested in protecting him. "You beat your wife, Richardson," one guard had said flatly. "Nobody in here respects that. You're on your own." So Marcus had learned to keep his head down, to stay quiet, to survive. He had also started attending the prison's domestic violence offender program, not because he was required to, but because his therapist, Dr. Raymond Pierce, had convinced him it might help him understand what he had done. The program was uncomfortable. It forced Marcus to confront truths he had spent years avoiding. In one session, Dr. Pierce had asked him, "Marcus, when did you first hit Gabrielle?" Marcus had tried to minimize it. "It wasn't really hitting at first, just grabbing her arm too hard, pushing her when I was frustrated." "And when did that escalate?" "Maybe a year after we married. She said something that made me feel disrespected, and I slapped her. Just once. She cried, I apologized, and I thought it was over. But it wasn't over. No, it got worse. Every time I felt insecure about my business, about her family's money, about anything, I took it out on her. And the crazy thing is, I convinced myself it was her fault, that if she just acted right, I wouldn't lose my temper." Dr. Pierce leaned forward. "Marcus, that's the lie every abuser tells themselves. The truth is, your violence had nothing to do with Gabrielle's behavior. It had everything to do with your need for control and your inability to handle your own emotions. You chose violence because it worked. It made you feel powerful when you felt powerless." Marcus had broken down crying in that session because deep down, he knew Dr. Pierce was right. He had destroyed a good woman because he couldn't handle his own insecurities. And now, she was out there rebuilding her life, helping other women, being celebrated as a hero, while he sat in prison, hated and alone. 3 months later, Gabrielle received an unexpected letter. It was from Marcus. She debated whether to open it. Part of her wanted to throw it away unread, but curiosity, and perhaps the need for closure, won out. The letter was handwritten on prison stationery. "Dear Gabrielle, I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read it, but I needed to write it anyway. I've spent the last 9 months in prison, thinking about what I did to you. Not just the night I knocked out your teeth, but all of it. 6 years of controlling you, hurting you, making you small so I could feel big. Dr. Pierce, my therapist here, says I have a pattern. When I feel insecure or powerless, I try to dominate others to regain control. That's what I did to you. I wish I could say I didn't know what I was doing, but the truth is I knew. Every time I hit you and you flinched the next time I raised my hand, I knew I was breaking you. Every time you apologized for things that weren't your fault, I knew you were trying to keep me calm, and I used that fear to control you. That was evil. I was evil. I know you started a foundation. I read about it in an article someone showed me. I'm glad. You're doing something good with your pain. You're helping women who don't have what you had, resources, family support, a way out. That's more than I deserve from you, but I'm grateful you're doing it anyway. I don't know who I'll be when I get out of here in 6 years. Maybe I'll be better. Maybe I'll still be the same broken person who hurt you. But I want you to know, you were right to leave. You were right to destroy my business and my reputation. You were right to send me to prison. Everything you did was justified. And if my punishment helps even one woman realize she can leave her abuser and survive, then maybe my life won't be completely wasted. I'm sorry doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry anyway. Marcus. Gabrielle read the letter 3 times, sitting in her home office. When she finished, she didn't feel anger or satisfaction or even sadness. She felt nothing. The letter was too little, too late. But she did feel something else. Gratitude. Gratitude that she had gotten out. Gratitude that she had survived. Gratitude that his words no longer had power over her. She folded the letter carefully, put it in a drawer, and moved on with her day. She had survivor support groups to organize, fundraising events to plan, and a life to live. Marcus's apology was his journey. Her healing was hers, and the two no longer needed to intersect. 2 years after that night, Gabrielle stood backstage at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., adjusting the collar of her elegant burgundy suit. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the magnitude of what was about to happen. Tonight, she was receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her work in domestic violence advocacy. The Gabrielle Johnson Foundation had grown beyond anything she had imagined. operating in 12 states, helping over 3,000 women escape abusive situations, and changing laws in 4 states to make it easier for survivors to access emergency funds and legal protection. But more than the medal, more than the recognition, what mattered was the impact. 3,000 women who were alive, safe, and free because she had turned her pain into purpose. A production assistant approached. "Ms. Johnson, you're on in 5 minutes." Gabrielle took a deep breath and looked at herself in the mirror one more time. Her smile was perfect now. The dental implants had fully integrated, and she had even gotten professional teeth whitening. No one would ever know she had lost 3 teeth unless she told them. But she always told them, because those missing teeth were the catalyst for everything that came after. They were the moment she stopped accepting the unacceptable. "Ready?" Simone appeared beside her, now not just her attorney, but the Foundation's general counsel and Gabrielle's closest friend. "Ready," Gabrielle said. As she walked onto the Kennedy Center stage to thunderous applause, she saw the audience: survivors, advocates, politicians, celebrities, and dignitaries. Her parents sat in the front row, her mother crying happy tears. David was there with his wife and kids, and throughout the audience were faces she recognized, women she had helped through the Foundation, women who had shared their stories with her, women who had found their strength by watching her find hers. The President of the United States stood at the podium, ready to present the medal. "Gabrielle Johnson represents the best of America," the President began. She could have taken her pain and hidden it. She could have used her privilege to quietly escape her abuser and move on with her life. Instead, she chose to use her voice, her resources, and her story to help thousands of other women find their own freedom. The Gabrielle Johnson Foundation has revolutionized how we support domestic violence survivors, particularly survivors of color and survivors with limited financial means. The President paused, looking directly at Gabrielle. But beyond the Foundation's work, Gabrielle herself represents something powerful: the refusal to let violence have the last word. She shows us that survivors are not defined by what was done to them, but by what they choose to do next. And she chose to rise. As the President placed the medal around her neck, Gabrielle felt tears streaming down her face. Not tears of pain, but tears of profound gratitude for the journey she had survived. When it was her turn to speak, she approached the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces. 2 years ago, she began, I was lying on a marble floor with 3 teeth scattered around me, blood in my mouth, and my husband standing over me, blaming me for his violence. In that moment, I had a choice: stay broken or break free. I chose freedom. The audience applauded, but Gabrielle raised her hand gently. But here's what I want everyone to understand. I didn't escape because I was strong. I escaped because I finally realized I was going to die if I stayed. That's not strength. That's survival instinct. The strength came later. The strength came in deciding to document the abuse, to gather evidence, to reach out to people I thought I'd lost. The strength came in choosing to prosecute him even when people told me I should just move on and be grateful I got out alive. She paused, her voice growing stronger. And the real strength, the kind that earned me this medal tonight, came when I decided that my story wouldn't end with, I survived. It would continue with, I helped others survive too. Because surviving isn't enough. We have to thrive. We have to rebuild. We have to show other women that life after abuse is not just possible. It's worth fighting for. Gabrielle looked directly at a section of the audience where dozens of Foundation beneficiaries sat. Women of all ages, races, and backgrounds who had escaped their abusers with the Foundation's help. To every survivor watching this tonight, whether you're in this room or at home, your story matters. Your life matters. You deserve safety, respect, and love. Real love, not the counterfeit version abusers offer. And if you're still trapped, please know there are people ready to help you. You don't need millions of dollars or famous parents. You just need the courage to reach out. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Reach out to local shelters. Contact the Gabrielle Johnson Foundation. We exist because I know what it's like to feel powerless, and I'm here to tell you, you have more power than you think. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. That same night, in a different kind of ceremony, Marcus Richardson stood in a small chapel inside Georgia State Prison, attending his 9th Domestic Violence Offender Program graduation. He had completed the program 18 months ago, but he continued to attend as a mentor to newer inmates who were just beginning to confront their abusive behaviors. Prison had aged him. At 39, he looked 50. His hair was graying, his face lined with the weight of his choices. But his eyes were different now, no longer filled with the arrogant certainty of a man who thought he controlled everything, but with the humble awareness of someone who had lost everything and was slowly learning why. Tonight's graduation speaker was Dr. Raymond Pierce, the therapist who had been working with Marcus since his 2nd month of incarceration. "Gentlemen," Dr. Pierce addressed the group of 15 men completing the program, "you are here because you committed violence against someone you claim to love. Some of you beat your wives, some of you terrorized your girlfriends, some of you hurt your children. All of you made choices that destroyed lives, not just your victims' lives, but your own." Marcus felt the familiar shame that came with these sessions. Even after 2 years, hearing the truth spoken plainly still hurt. "But here's what I want you to understand," Dr. Pierce continued. "Acknowledging what you've done is just the beginning. Real change requires you to understand why you did it, to develop empathy for your victims, and to commit to never making those choices again. Some of you will succeed. Some of you will go back to your old patterns the moment you're released. The difference between those outcomes is whether you do the internal work or just go through the motions." After the ceremony, Marcus approached Dr. Pierce. "Doc, I saw an article today," Marcus said quietly. "Gabrielle got the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her foundation work." "I saw that too," Dr. Pierce replied. "How do you feel about it?" Marcus had learned in therapy that this question wasn't rhetorical. Dr. Pierce genuinely wanted to know, and the honest answer mattered. "Proud," Marcus said, and he meant it. "And ashamed. Proud because she took the worst thing I ever did to her and turned it into something that's helping thousands of women. Ashamed because I'm the reason she had to build that foundation in the first place. If I had been the husband she deserved, she'd be using her talents for something else. Maybe she'd be a judge or a professor or running her family's business. Instead, she's spending her life helping women escape men like me." Dr. Pierce nodded. "That's good awareness, Marcus. You're understanding that your violence had ripple effects beyond just the immediate harm. But I want to ask you something else. What are you going to do with your remaining 4 years in here? And more importantly, what are you going to do when you get out?" Marcus had thought about this question constantly. He would be released in 4 more years, at age 43, with a felony record, no business, no money, and a reputation as a domestic abuser. His mother was the only family member who still spoke to him, and even that relationship was strained. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I can't get my old life back. I can't undo what I did. But maybe I can do what you do. Work with other men who are where I was. Show them that the tough guy act, the need to control, the violence, it doesn't make you powerful. It makes you pathetic." Dr. Pierce smiled slightly. "That's the first time I've heard you describe your former self as pathetic." "Because that's what I was. I thought hitting my wife made me a man." But real men don't need to hurt people to feel strong. Real men don't need to tear down their partners to build themselves up. I wish someone had taught me that 20 years ago. "You can teach it to others now," Dr. Pierce said. "There are programs for formerly incarcerated men who want to work in violence prevention. It won't be glamorous, and it won't pay well, but it would be real, and it would matter." Marcus nodded slowly. For the first time since his arrest, he felt something like hope. Not hope for getting his old life back, that life was gone forever, and it deserved to be, but hope that his future might have meaning beyond just serving time and trying to stay out of trouble. 3 months later, Gabrielle received another letter from Marcus. This time she opened it immediately. curious about what he might say now that she had become a national figure. Dear Gabrielle, I saw you receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I watched it on the TV in the prison common room. Some of the guys made comments, mocking me, saying my ex-wife is famous now while I'm rotting in here. They weren't wrong. But here's what I want you to know. I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be proud, no right to feel any connection to your success. But I am anyway. You took the worst thing I ever did and turned it into something beautiful. You're saving lives. That's more than I could ever do. I'm going to spend the rest of my time in here preparing to do something worthwhile when I get out. Dr. Pierce thinks I might be able to work in violence prevention, teaching other men not to make the mistakes I made. It won't undo what I did to you. Nothing can. But maybe it can stop me from being completely worthless. I know you don't need my permission or approval for anything. You never did. But I want to say this anyway. Thank you for leaving me. Thank you for destroying my business and my reputation. Thank you for sending me to prison, because all of that was exactly what I deserved, and it was the only thing that could have forced me to look at who I really was. You were always too good for me. I just wish I had known it before I hurt you. Take care of yourself, Gabrielle. Keep changing the world. Marcus. Gabrielle read the letter, then carefully filed it away with the previous one. She didn't respond. She never would. But she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but the recognition that Marcus's journey was his own now, just as hers was hers. He would have to live with what he'd done. She would live with what she'd survived and what she'd built from those ashes. That was enough. 1 year later, the Gabrielle Johnson Foundation held its third annual gala in Atlanta. Over 800 people attended, raising $4.2 million in a single night, money that would fund safe houses, legal services, and emergency assistance for survivors across 15 states. Gabrielle, now 35 and more confident than she'd ever been, stood at the podium in a stunning gold evening gown, her smile brilliant and genuine. 3 years ago, she told the audience, I thought my life was over. I thought the worst night of my life, losing my teeth, bleeding on my own floor, was the end of my story. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. She gestured to the massive screen behind her, displaying photos of women the foundation had helped, mothers with their children in safe housing, women graduating from job training programs, survivors standing in front of their first apartments free from abuse. These women are why we do this work, because every single one of them deserves what I had, a way out, a support system, and the resources to rebuild. And every single one of them has proven what I learned 3 years ago. We are not broken. We are not victims. We are survivors. And when we rise, we lift each other up. The audience erupted in applause. After the gala, Gabrielle stood on the balcony of the venue, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. Simone joined her with 2 glasses of champagne. You did it, Simone said. You turned the worst night of your life into a movement that's changing thousands of lives. Gabrielle took the champagne and smiled, that perfect, hard-won smile that represented everything she'd survived and everything she'd become. No, she corrected gently. We did it. You, my family, every survivor who shared her story, every donor who believed in this work. We did it together. But you started it, Simone insisted. You were brave enough to leave, smart enough to plan, and strong enough to use your story to help others. Gabrielle thought about that night 3 years ago. The blood, the teeth, the pain. The moment she decided she would rather die free than live controlled. He beat me until I lost my teeth, Gabrielle said quietly, and I made him lose everything. But more importantly, I gained everything, my freedom, my voice, my purpose. And now, 3,000 other women have gained theirs too. She raised her glass to the Atlanta skyline, to the journey she'd survived, to the future she'd built. To surviving, Gabrielle toasted. To thriving, Simone added. They clinked glasses as the city lights sparkled below them. a city where Gabrielle had once been trapped, then broken, and now stood free, powerful, and unstoppable. Marcus Richardson had tried to destroy her with violence. Instead, he had unknowingly set her free, and Gabrielle Johnson had risen from those ashes like the phoenix on her foundation's logo, transformed, unbreakable, and more powerful than anyone who had tried to break her could ever imagine. The abuser got 7 years in prison. The survivor got the rest of her life. And she chose to spend it making sure no woman ever had to suffer alone the way she once had. That was the ultimate revenge, not destroying him, though she had done that thoroughly, but building something so beautiful, so powerful, so meaningful from the wreckage of what he'd tried to destroy. She had lost 3 teeth, but she had gained herself, and in the end, that was everything. The end.